Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Patterson, and in 30 seconds, you'll be invited into a work group meeting made up of men who have been successful and engaging men in the fight against human trafficking. What these men are doing is sharing with each other what works to have men participate in anti-trafficking efforts. This interview is part of a series of interviews with people who are experts in the fight against human trafficking and child exploitation, and is part of my channel whose mission is to mobilize the community by teaching everyone their part in the fight to prevent sexual exploitation. You can find the channel link in the video description below, as well as links for the projects that the men talk about during this work session. Please do subscribe to this channel and like and share this video. Thank you.
Hi, welcome everyone. So my name is Patrick Erlinson. I work with the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force here in the Los Angeles area, and also have been heading up the Men Standing Against Trafficking, which is a group of men who basically take to the streets where trafficking is occurring and demonstrate in support of the girls who are being trafficked, the human beings who are being trafficked. That all men are not customers, that there are actually men who care about what's happening to them and the lives that they are meant to live. Also, I've started a film and art festival called See It, End It, which is really to deal with culture, to make inroads into how we can bring this message of human trafficking and exploitation of human beings into the sphere of popular culture through all of the arts. So through music, through dance, through film, and through discussion. So there's an educational component as well as having your heart opened and broken by actually seeing stories of what's happening in human trafficking. And then the other thing that is really near and dear to my heart is FatherCon. So we started FatherCon 2 years ago and started having an annual conference really devoted to getting men together. So future fathers, current fathers, and father figures, which is increasingly an important component, that we need to have good men who can be father figures for the millions of children around the world who do not have father figures in their lives, or healthy father relationships. So FatherCon was really to bring people together, to bring fathers together, to bring men together, to really look at not just the dangers and not just the threats that our families face, but also the incredible responsibility and blessing it is to be a father. And it's so often we overlook that, and we go into fatherhood not really appreciating the full scope of our significance and the impact that we're going to have on our children and our communities through our families. And so FatherCon is really like established for that. And we're now just setting in motion FatherCon 2021. And so we'll be working towards that, hopefully with a large live event in the summer. Fingers crossed, praying, hoping that happens. On that, I'd really like to open this up and introduce you to the other men on this panel. Joe, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Joe Sullivan. I'm a deacon at a Catholic church in Huntington Beach, so Southern California. And there's a trafficking task force at the county level that encourages us to, spread awareness. And we have some police officers who wanted to be part of a talk to let men know what was going on, and to realize that a lot of the trafficking, particularly sex trafficking, is men are the reason for it, the cause of it, and to help us become aware of what we need to do to turn that around. And so given a few talks to men's groups, I'll give one to any group that wants to gather, but we go through 6 things so people are aware of the main things they need to know. Poverty as a driver, pornography as a driver, what law enforcement does, and then the danger to our children, and the special cases of foster kids and survivors. So it's just beginning. It's hard to get people to sit down and listen, so have to find groups that are willing to host a talk, and that's where I'm at, trying to spread the news that men can be leaders, and we need to be leaders in the fight. Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much. So Reverend Bowie, how about you?
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Oliver Bowie, and I'm a local pastor in the city of Los Angeles. And also, I also one of the chief driving forces of the Black Faith Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which is a national organization. Also, as we are getting prepared for 2021, we will be hosting a conference in February of 2021, and we'll be able to give you further information and dates of that time as we move forward. I have been actively involved in this work in fighting against human trafficking for the past 3 years. And as I continue to move forward within my community, which has been devastated and is continuing to be devastated by this unfortunate ill, and there are several reasons why this exists. One of the main reasons is the breakdown of the family. Once you break down the family, people become quite vulnerable because family is the foundation of everything which is positive, that is stand upon, built upon. It's the foundation. Break down the family, you break down the community. You break down the community, there's no one really holding anyone accountable, and quite naturally, if you break down the family, your church becomes weaker. So as I jump into this fight, looking to shore up those areas and work, and I'm not just looking to fight against human trafficking after it occurs. As we move forward, I think it's very important that we be proactive and looking to prevent it from ever happening or occurring. One of the areas I also work in within is the foster care area, where I'm a board member of an organization called 3FN, and not just a board member, one of the founders, as we are actively working throughout the Los Angeles area, but given a special focus on SPA 6 in the Los Angeles area, where that is the heaviest or the largest amount of foster children within the African American community that's impacted. Also, I serve with the Department of Children and Family Services of Los Angeles as what is called a cultural broker, where I serve in that capacity of helping individuals who have been impacted by the foster system, where their families may have been broken up or what have you. And I serve as kind of like a mediator, which helps bridge the gap of DCFS understanding the client and the client understanding DCFS, where I serve in the capacity to be able to hopefully create a better relationship and better communication between the families. But most of all, I work together with several organizations, as some of these gentlemen who are on this panel, we work together collaboratively, and also as men, understanding the importance of the male role in fighting and ending this, because we are one of the main driving forces that create this evil and perpetuate it. And as we come together, understanding as we stand up as men of God, for the people of God and for the world, to promote righteousness and to be able to provoke justice for all people. This is an ill that is devastated not only the nation of America, but throughout the world. And if we as men stand together, we can make a difference to end this, and we play an important and significant role in ending it as we protect our women, our daughters, our friends, our neighbors. And I just look forward to continuing to do this work. And I know that with God on our side, we cannot lose. God bless you.
Thank you for that. Isaac, how about you? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Ooh. Hi, everyone. My name is Isaac McKeithen. I am actually a coordinator of Men Standing Against Human Trafficking in Anaheim and Lake Forest. Been in the human trafficking fight now for 4 years, and just recently started a Orange County Slingshots, which we work together with the faith community, in Orange County and the work alongside the Orange County Task Force here in Southern California. Our new project is really looking at getting men to understand and engage in the fight against human trafficking by empowering men to battle the demand side, which is first down here in Southern California. We're actually battling human trafficking from the demand side of human trafficking. So we really are just talking to men and young men all the way up to men of elderly age. So we're a wide variety looking to engage in men.
Great, thank you so much. And Yusuf, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Yusuf Miller. I'm in San Diego area. I'm the founder of Mosque Against Trafficking and a board member of the San Diego Regional Anti-Human Trafficking and Sexual Exploitation of Children Advisory Council to the county, and also a non-survivor leader of the Survivor Leader Network, working with survivors to promote and explain what it is to be human trafficked and what is the responsibility of men in this area. Also a member of ABOG, a bunch of guys, which is an organization that is on the demand side of approaching the demand side. We set up, you probably already know what ABOG is, but we set up fake sites so that men that approach that site and looking for sex, we can engage them, explain to them what harm they're doing to women and girls, and the legalities and the destruction of the family that's occurring. So we do that pretty frequently during the pandemic. It's been slowed down a lot, so we're eager to get back to it. And I want to ask for your pardon for my lateness. I'm a bit under the weather. I'll be muted most of the time because I'm coughing constantly. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here, even despite your ill health. Thank you so much, Yusuf. And Ken, last but not least.
Hey, I'm gonna be least, man. I'm gonna be least. There's good things about least people are least.
If he's the least, we're in good shape.
But before I do, good morning, everyone, man. Good to be on here with you. Yusuf, if I could, what is I'm familiar with ABOG, but I don't know how do you pronounce that? How do you spell it, basically? That organization.
Oh yeah, it's an acronym for a bunch of guys, ABOG.
Oh, okay, OG. Okay, one letter wrong. Okay, a bunch of guys. I like it. All right, awesome. So, hey, good morning. My name is Ken Henry. I am a certified life coach and sociologist. I am current director here in Houston, Texas, newly here in Houston, Texas from LA, of Alive, which is Alliance of Leadership and Innovation for victims that are exploited. And that is where we're focusing on ending sex trafficking, specifically in the Black community here, since it's so underrepresented, and you're just pulling all those resources together and learning how to mobilize the community here to get involved and to end that. Also, still current leader of the Compton Human Trafficking Task Force, one of the founders there. So still heavily involved in LA and trying to bridge the gap between LA and Houston, Texas to just make us stronger. Also, of course, with the Black Faith Against Coalition Against Trafficking, one of the steering committee members there, along with Pastor Bowie and amazing Susan too, and Sheila and some other greats. And so again, doing the same thing, trying to bridge that gap between LA and eventually start a Black Faith Coalition Against Trafficking here in Houston, which we've already began building some relationship with 3 strong churches. And I'm also the co-host, which I'm excited about. I'll get to use one of my degrees for the Stories of Black Folk, which I do with Dr. Nisa McNeil, who's out of LA, where we just talk about the rich history of African folks, how our education and teaching, how big that we've always been on storytelling and doing that here and trying to bridge the gap between the young and the old and keeping that rich culture going. So we just talk about different stories of history that we teach a lot of times that people didn't know. And then also we talk about personal things of the African-American culture that was created here, you know, once brought here from Africa, the culture that was created. And then allowing people to call in and give their stories as well, just to empower. And so she's big in foster care as well as myself, have a huge history with that, but also anti-human trafficking. So to me, we look at it as a prevention tool, to be honest, even though that was not the motive to start, because we're empowering and we're educating and we're giving so much self-confidence and respect to the culture that we think is really needed. So I think I covered everything there. Yep.
Thank each and every one of you so much for joining us this morning. One of the reason we're coming together and putting this conversation together, this presentation together, is there's such a need to reach into the population of men, that we really need to engage men in this issue of human trafficking. And I know when I first started, you know, a decade ago, it was just seen as a woman's issue. There were very few men that were getting involved. Almost no men showed up to any kind of event or activity around human trafficking. And I think part of that problem is well, I think there's a number of different problems. And one is that there are an awful lot of men who are carrying a lot of shame and guilt around with them, who have bought into the idea that they're not really so essential to the family and to the raising of their children, that the mother is the primary person who's important there. There's a lot of reasons for men to have disengaged, and because the leadership was primarily women leading, that a lot of men just didn't step up into the positions of responsibility that they really need to occupy. To me, one of the main concerns that I have is that, you know, it's like Reverend Bowie said, it's not just a question of being against human trafficking. We cannot make this just an against movement. We have to be for something, and for something really empowering and something really good. And that vision of what men, the leadership that men can take, the responsibility that men carry, and that being a really positive thing, like aspiring to fulfill our responsibility as men and as fathers, is something kind of God-given. It's something really powerful and wonderful, not something to be avoided, not something to be diminished, not something to be reduced in its significance. And so our pulling together here and the previous conversation we had really touched on this point. How do we reach out to men and get men to engage in this issue? How do we make this something that's really important to them, that they cannot just turn away from, and that they also can recognize that they are the solution? I mean, if we, anytime we look and we see this is the problem, well, then we know what the solution is, right? So if the problem of demand, you know, with Isaac, you're dealing with that, and Yusuf, you're dealing with really confronting the demand side of human trafficking, which is primarily male. Well, then the solution is we change that male involvement in demand, right? So we can see that, but how do we do it? How do we go about getting more men engaged? So I want to open this up, kind of looking at how each of you imagine that. How do you go forward? How do we go forward, really, to bring in more men into this issue so that we become the solution, not just the seen as the problem? Would anyone like to start off and run with that?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. One of the things that, and you know, I'm definitely always coming from a position of my faith. One of the challenges that we face is that the church does not do very much education on sex, period. So one of the problems that we find is that our sex education, even in the church, comes from the world. So one of the things that we need to do is begin to in the churches began and faith communities to begin to teach and educate once again God's plan around sex, God's sacredness of sex. Especially in the United States of America, sex has been taken and exploited even by big business. And so one of the driving forces behind everything in America has been influenced by sex in a way from a worldly perspective. And it has reduced many of the women, and many of the women don't understand, to being objects. So they're no longer even human beings. And so we have to begin, I say, one, in the churches to begin to educate people and also reimagine what sex is all about and what God intended, and begin to move that agenda. And I want to leave, I can talk for a lot more, but I want to leave room for all of us. So I just want to interject that piece right there for a place that we could start.
Yeah, that is just so significant. I think if we really start looking at what, like, our brains are really constructed for intimacy. We need it. We are designed for it. It's where our deepest joy can come from in life. It's actually to be known for who we are and loved for who we really are, without any of the shadows, without the hiding and sneaking in the magazines under the mattress and, you know, all of that. But how do we really create kind of a support system within the church community for kind of heavenly intimacy? That is so important. Anyone else kind of want to jump in? Joe.
I would like to jump in there.
Okay.
I think exposure and access to men is what we need. In addition to what the good Reverend said, I think that I spent 24 years of active duty service in the military with the Navy and Marine Corps. And throughout my 24 years, I've seen that men sort of think of this industry as a fee for service, and the female has agency in this. And it's just something she does to get by, and maybe they're helping out or whatever. The change the mythologies that are associated with buying sex and human trafficking in general. And as I table in different events and venues, and I talk to men, I speak to men directly, so many myths are broken down. So I think the access to what we're presenting to men is a key component. A lot of times we walk around and people have heard of human trafficking. You ask them if they heard of human trafficking, they kind of have, but they don't know exactly what it means. So we need to scratch that surface, dig deeper, let people know the severity of the issue so that they can really connect with their feelings on this issue. A lot of people don't. It's a superficial issue. It's something that's going on that's not too bad. It's going on in, according to us here in the US, it's going on in other people's country, right? So it's going on overseas, it's going on in Asia, Malaysia, and in Africa and places like that. And it's actually going here in the grand old US of A. So to get people that proximity to the issue, to get us proximity to our feelings and reality of what it really is, we as men need to be exposing ourselves to other men as much as possible. Venues like sporting events, venues like different things like that, you know, during concerts and places where men gather and socialize. We need to expose this information to them better, because as though we're doing a great job, I hear all the great titles and groups and events that these wonderful people here on this call have been a part of. The great job we're doing, we could do a lot better on this advertisement and reaching out.
Yeah, that's really, really important. It's like how it's presented, how we're explaining this or exposing men to this issue in a way that really makes them feel like that they can and they must become a part of it. Yeah, really important. And Joe.
Let me add something there about the need. Men need within their community kind of heroes, if you will, guys we look up to who are leading this way, and therefore we're willing to listen to them and follow them and then learn about, you know, fatherhood and all that kind of thing. But within our communities, we need somebody to follow a little bit, you know, otherwise we just don't get that interested in it. And so I don't know where we're going to find them, but within our communities, that's something we need. How to get men involved. We respond to somebody that we want to follow or that is a good leader within our community. And, you know, we have to find those guys who are willing to step up and be leaders. So that's all I wanted to say.
Let me just jump in there. Joe, you're that guy.
Yeah.
See, that's what we got to understand, that we're that guy. And what happens in understanding, Joe, you look like you're probably about my age. We must understand that another thing, what has happened, the male man has been reduced and is being emasculated within our society. And many of us are standing by allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and realizing, especially all of us on this call, I know are men of God. And we've got to stand for what we say we believe. If we want people to follow us, we got to stop talking about it. And we've seen in recent years, the church has done, and it does a great job. Wonderful messages, the best messages of all time. But when it comes to living it out, and we keep looking for someone else, but we've got to understand what I understand right now. The person they're looking for the change is me. And so I have, by the power of God, it's not me, but by the power of God, I'm going to be the change that I want to see. I believe that the God that I preach about is real, and he has given us instructions that's in the book. And as we live out those truths, men will follow. Men will not follow because the men, unfortunately, of those in the church, we have fallen down on our responsibility and have failed to be the men that book tells us to be. And when we do that, you don't have to worry about what they're looking for, because they're looking for you. God bless you.
Oh, yes. And you know what? I've got to come in, Patrick, with this, because, and I think we could end this call right after this. Let me just say. But we got to take the collection up after that message. So basically, that's exactly what I wanted to say is, you know, because I'm taking notes as everybody is speaking and saying what they think, and on side of each of your names. And to me, this is what I'm so encouraged about, because we are those men. You know, I'm looking at 6 leaders right here, 6 heroes that Joe speaks about. There are 6 heroes and 6 leaders right now that have a community already. We have a community in our neighborhood. We have a community in our churches, maybe in organizations that we're working for, our companies. We already are those men right there, right? All we have to do is do what our brother said, Yusuf, is give exposure and access, right? Because we have things to act that are accessible. We have men standing against trafficking. We have Father Khan. We have See It Ended. We have Compton Human Trafficking Task Force. We have Black Faith Coalition. We are set up. I mean, God has already set us up. So there's a lot going on that we have already that we need to give those men exposure to, because we see men all the time. We see men in churches. We see men on our jobs. We see men just out in the community, you know, doing our day-to-day tasks. We're getting into conversations. I have it all the time. I've been here since June. My barber wants to heavily be involved in calling me, texting me. My real estate agents, you know, these are men, but both men. Everywhere I go, because I preach the message, when we get intimate, and they want to know, wow, more about it. They want to get more educated about it. So I talk about the task force that is going on over here. I talk about what we're doing in LA and how what we're doing now with Alive here in Houston, and how there's places that they can get involved in. So I think what we have to do, again, and who else? Even Reverend Bowie with the sex education in the churches. So everybody has a field of influence. And I think this for me, because I'm going to get off here at 12 because I have a life coaching session, but I want to say that we have some very strong men in this thing already, that God has already positioned us. I think we just have to embrace that power, because we have a power, and we need to be able to start walking in it. But we have platforms. So we have the men, we have the vessels, we have the platforms. So all we have to do is get organized and get structured. That's the most important thing I can say. And I don't know each person's involvement in their entity. Only you would know that. And you just have to be honest with yourself. If not, there's a lot of us here who can help each other. Organizations with the things that you have going on, and structure is very, very imperative. So get those things together and just start right there where you're at in your community, doing little campaigns. So as you're doing your work, make some time to do a little campaign to say, we're going to grow this thing, or we're going to invite some other folks in. I don't care if it's two new guys every month, a quarter. Trust me, just build. God is going to send the people as we get responsible, organized, where we can take care of people. God's going to add to that number. And what does Acts 2:42 say? A fellowship of believers. They were gathered every single day. They ate together. They taught. They gave us anyone had need. So that showed true love. And what it said, God added to the number daily those who are being saved. And I believe he will do the same thing with any type of righteous movement that's trying to glorify him. So my thing is, we have the platforms. We are the heroes. We are those men. That's how I look at it. Where I'm here in Houston, I'm like, God, you're using me. I have to be responsible. I pray constantly for wisdom. I pray constantly for discernment, because I want to be responsible with it. From places I go, from speaking, when to hold back. But I realize that God is using me here. And so I have a responsibility to grow. And I am, although I'm part of all this stuff still in LA, and I'm going to be a part of that. And everybody who knows me, I don't let distance or anything be a challenge or be an excuse. I'm going to do my part, because I know God will give me. However, while I'm here, I'm very, very dedicated to seeing what he wants to do and building here and opening up those doors. So I see 5 other great men on this thing that I'm looking at right now, and listening to you guys speak. You already have sacrificial hearts. You're already giving, and you have so much to offer. Just stand in your power and watch God grow these things. And this network that we're building, reach out to either one of us as we're learning each other's strengths, because we all are going to have strengths that the other person doesn't have. Because I heard a lot of the stuff they're doing. I didn't even know Orange County had a men standing against trafficking, and that's so awesome that they're working with the task force. This whole, a bunch of men, a bug. I mean, I didn't know that exists, so that's amazing. So I feel like we have so many strong men here with wisdom. Let's draw from that as we build this thing here, and get each other excited. I think what I want to do is that we get each other excited about what's going on in our lives. Because sometimes we need that. Where Patrick may be feeling some great excitement, I may be sitting over here in the valley like, oh God, I'm struggling trying to get these Southern people to open their eyes, and I'm Southern myself, but I've been in LA 20 years. Trust me, coming back, it's like, whoa, like there's a lot of beauty, but then there's a lot of, man, are you serious? So sometimes I need that refreshment from LA to like, yes, okay, that's right. Okay, let me bring this over here and show them. So I just think that let's stay in touch. Phone calls, emails, whatever it takes, reach out to each other and inspire each other, pray for each other. But I do think that the engaging men is very easy. I believe that with everything, that's my conviction. That has been my experience. Engaging men is very easy, but we have to be men that love men enough to call them out and not worry about somebody, and not be surprised if they don't want to get involved. Okay. I have sat there and I'll close out with this, but I have been the guy to go ahead and to teach, diversion classes to Johns and Compton, right? And that was an incredible experience for me. I was excited about that. I didn't know which way that would go. I didn't know if I want to drag this man the first time, or if God would allow me to have that compassion and love that I'm supposed to have. I had no clue, but you know what? God reigned. And I saw a man that didn't even understand human trafficking, that did exactly what I think one of you guys said. I think it was Yusuf, that he just thought, well, that she wanted to do this, that's where she's choosing to make money, and I want to get off. So to me, like, you know what I'm saying? What's the problem? I had he had no clue. And a few of those men were like that women were being coerced into this and fed drugs and put into this lifestyle to be used and exploited. And so it allowed me to have compassion on this man. This is a man with no criminal history, no record, upstanding citizen, go to church, has a family, been at his job 30 years, and crying right there before me because he's so embarrassed and shamed that he found that all these people in his community is finding this out. So there's a lot of men like that also that are out there. But I think that we just have to be willing to speak up, speak out with love. And I think God will bring those men. And the more men they see, the more men we're going to see changing their life and turning around. So that's all I had to say, guys. But yeah, we are those men.
Well, that was great, Kenny and Pastor Oliver, and you know, all you men are actually hitting on the right subject. And at the end of the day, it's about weakness. I mean, we as men, that's the one thing that we are in denial of, even when we're strong. God says He will use our weakness, and through His strength, you know, prosper. So we have to get men to understand that it is okay to be weak because God is strong. And as long as, you know, you believe, you know, God will do amazing work through you. You don't have to do it all on your own. And I believe, you know, in our society today, that's where the disconnect is. You know, men believe that they have to shoulder all of the responsibility, all of the burden, all of the pain, and they really don't. You know, there is a community out there that's willing to share, you know, in their pain. And you know, if long as they believe that, you know, take up the yoke and God will be right there with you, you know, and get you through that. Your pain can be used as a gift, you know, and even though it may be embarrassing that, you know, you are addicted to sex or you're addicted to porn or, you know, whatever your addiction is, that can still be used for good. You know, that pain can be transformed and turn people around. And that's what we're doing, you know, with the slingshots is, you know, getting men to understand that, yes, we understand this is a weakness. We understand that you're addicted to this and bringing out the reality of that it is okay. We're not going to shame you for what you're doing, but we are going to bring to the forefront what you're doing is not right. You know, and just getting men to understand that the victims are not willingly doing this. You know, they're coerced, like you say, from a young age all through their adulthood. So getting men to understand that is paramount. And just like we talk about when men get together, we talk about sporting events, we talk about going hunting, fishing, or whatever. We should be able to talk about this. We should be able to talk about our weaknesses. We should be able to talk about how to be a better example in the society as men of faith. And you know, that's really what I see this group is end goal is to be. And everyone on here has really touched on the very core of the issue.
There's some, I keep going back and thinking about what Joe said, and I think there's a lot of men who just kind of like, they don't feel qualified to be in a leadership position. They feel that they're carrying that weakness with them, and that therefore they don't qualify. And so I think the calling for us is, how do we create kind of the welcome? How do we create kind of the place where men can say, yeah, I've got this brokenness in my life. How do I make a difference in human trafficking? How do I make a difference in this need when I've got this brokenness in myself? And I think for me, in like the podcast that I have, I've been interviewing these different survivors, and you see the willingness of someone who went through the most degrading, humiliating, abusive experience that a human being can go through, and then they take that, and that empowers them to then reach out and help others. And I think if we just have shame, if we just have guilt, you know, it's like it's eating away at us. I mean, I have so many experiences of working with men who have like sex addictions, you know, and from my own experience and from everything that I've learned and studied, you know, that it's this lie, and it all started with a lie. It started with a lie, and it's like, and the lie is trying to finish us off. And men who accept this lie that they're just not good enough, that they've done things, I'm always looking at beautiful women. How can I take a position against human trafficking? We need to shape that and really welcome men in and help them to understand that those things that they consider weaknesses, those are their strengths if they let God use it. If they'll willingly let God use those areas of their greatest weakness, greatest failings, to empower them to be someone who can reach out to more men, so that we have not just these perfect stellar leaders, that we have people who are willing, that become leaders because they feel this need, that this is what they're called to. And we really, just so many men are just sitting back and waiting. And they're the solution, but they're just not stepping up. And a lot of times it's because, you know, within the church, there hasn't been an embrace. There hasn't been the acceptance of the prodigal son back. There's kind of a, you did that. And it keeps men feeling that they can't take leadership. And so I really want to change that. How do we empower the guy who's had problems, who's been weak? How do we make him feel like, yeah, he's an essential leader for us? He's essential because he speaks to so many other men. That's really, really important. So I think everyone gets a sense from listening to the six of us here on this panel today, just how deep this goes, how urgent it is, and how empowering it is for us to really step up as men, and how important this conversation is. So I really want to welcome you. We're gonna have this on an ongoing basis. We want you to reach out to us, connect to us through God's Grace Ministries, through this platform. You can reach to us. Please join this, spread the word. We need men to be on board. No one is too weak to be a part of this movement to end human trafficking. So please connect to us. Take into your hearts, into your prayer, you know, what you've heard today, and just know we've just scratched the surface. There is an incredible amount of depth that we need to go into in this, and we are. So please join us, be a part of this as we move forward. We thank you so much for joining us, and see you again in a couple months. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone, Joe and Ken, Isaac, Oliver, and Yusuf. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
It's inspiring to hear from you all.